Going into this budget, we did see the rand slightly steady after seeing the US dollar, of course, strengthen on back of the stronger figures, the PPI numbers coming in. But the rand strengthened to about 18.17. Also quite interesting to see the 10-year government bond yields also strengthening, managed to rally about 13 basis points. And this is after we did see that sharp drop yesterday. I generally look at the 10-year bond yield, and that is just basically a way for us to get a sentiment in terms of broader investor confidence. But let's look at some graphics just to wrap it all up for us in terms of some of the conversations that we've had. Eskom debt there, that was one of the main concerns that investors were looking at. 254 billion rand of Eskom's debt to be taken by government. And what was quite interesting when we look at the bond side, as it relates to Eskom, those Eskom dollar-denominated bonds are rallying up 1% after government deciding to make that move. Another very interesting one, which we were expecting in any case, was as it relates to sin taxes. And we're going to get to that right now. So those are the increases that we were looking at. So on average, those increases sitting at about 4.9%. However, South Africans will be relieved to see that we did see some relief when it comes to fuel levies not being increased for a second consecutive year, with Godongwana rather not announcing any changes regarding the general fuel levy as well as the road accident fund. But let's look at some of these social services, especially from that particular side. 60% of total budget going to social services. And as you can see on your screen, that breakdown, majority of it's going to be sitting between learning and culture and social development. Learning and culture, 457.1 billion rand, and social development at 378 billion. Another interesting fact, as we sort of put this in a nutshell, we did see the sugar industry being slightly relieved rather, with no hike in sugar tax this year. The minister saying that the increase of the health promotion levy on beverages to 2.3% per gram of sugar is been delayed until April 1st, 2025. So that is where we're sitting. That is the nutshell when we wrap up budget 2023. But we're not that done. We're going to be looking at some perspectives and speaking to a guest who's going to be giving us her perspective in terms of her thoughts on the budget. And we are joined by Michelle Austin, who's the financial director at Keegor. Michelle, thank you so much for your time. I mean, as many people have said, probably post the budget delivery, no major surprises in this 2023 one, but your key thoughts and takeaways here.
Hi there, sorry, just to welcome, thank you for welcoming me. So I think in general, I've got a mixed reaction. There's no surprises, to be honest. But yes, I think that the infrastructure spending will assist in many areas, but will definitely assist in job creation. A concern that I have is that the energy incentives are more than likely not going to have an impact on broader society, and specifically small businesses. So I think that small businesses might still bear the brunt of the economic downturn. They don't necessarily have the access to funding. And as a result, they might not be able to take up those opportunities, and might not be able to take advantage of the tax incentives. I also think that there has not been enough that has been done in terms of unemployment and job creation, as well as crime. So I think that in general, some of the leaks haven't been plugged. So yeah, I mean, the energy supply and the energy crisis, it is absolutely imperative to economic growth. And until such time as the renewable energy supply start bearing fruit, there is going to be a lag in the economy.
When it comes to this incentive, for people to install rooftop solar PVs, I mean, for somebody like yourself who's playing in that manufacturing space, is this an incentive that seems attractive to you at this particular point, or have you already found a way to mitigate us against some of the energy pressures that we're seeing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've been really lucky so far. We're in an industrial area where we haven't been load shedded at this point. And I'm going to touch wood here. We do have backup generators at this point, but then it becomes a case of how do you afford the diesel that's required to power generators that need to power a massive factory. So it is something that would be we'd definitely look at. Obviously, we need to look at the cost benefit of it, but at this point, I do think that we need to mitigate our risks around energy supply, and obviously, if you look at it from a broader business perspective, we need to consider all of our stakeholders in business and our community. The country at large. If we can have any impact in renewable energy, then it's something that we definitely need to consider.
The one thing that was quite interesting for me was, especially when it comes to the social distress relief grant. I mean, Treasury saying there that the future of that COVID-19 distress grant is currently funded until March 31st, 2024, but it still remains under discussion. And you can understand that from Treasury's point of view, because in order for you to continue with this grant, some increases from a revenue side need to happen somewhere, or you need to have spending reductions elsewhere. I guess from Treasury's point of view, it's a kind of a rock and a hard place, because you want to help as much as you can, but at some point, the money's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah, 100%. To be honest, I don't envy being in the finance minister's boots right now. I think that the economy in general and the world economy, it's not even just the South African economy, is in a really hard place right now. And he's faced with some serious challenges. Obviously, the one that's at the front of all of our minds is the energy crisis. But yes, there needs to be a balance. And that is exactly what he is saying about these tough trade-offs. We need to look at the short-term and the long-term prosperity of the country, and consider all citizens in making decisions and budget allocation. So, yes, I think it is something that was necessary and that he has spoken to in the right direction.
In the beginning of the conversation, you remarked that this budget for you was quite mixed. So if you had to rate it out of 10, give it a score out of 10, what would that be?
I think I would probably go with a 6 or a 6.5. I think we all are very, very keen to see some more, especially from a small business perspective. We're very keen to see, what's going to transpire in terms of the freight and logistics networks that they're talking about, in terms of the energy crisis and how quickly the state of disaster is going to help us get out of essentially the mess that we're in. The infrastructure spending. So I think in general, I think it's not a bad budget at all. But I'm really concerned that we are benefiting the rich and that the poor and the small businesses are going to be the ones that are going to suffer. They're not going to be able to take up these tax incentives, and that really concerns me.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. That is Michelle Austin, who's the financial director at Keegor, tracking that Rand reaction 1823. And one of the other key issues that we will unpack, I suppose, as the show goes on and for the rest of the week, has to do with those GDP forecasts. National Treasury being quite optimistic on the tone, especially when it comes to their expected economic growth for this year, forecasting GDP growth for 2023 to be 0.9%. That's 3 times higher than the central bank's expectations. So we'll see how all of this unfolds.